My name is Jessica, and if someone had told me 10 years ago that my life would take the turns it has, I would have laughed in disbelief. Back then, I was living alone in a small apartment, working long hours at a marketing firm, and convinced that love wasn't in the cards for me. I had been through a breakup that left me guarded, and though friends often told me I would find someone, I didn't believe it. But then David came into my life, and everything changed. David was unlike anyone I had ever met. He was kind, thoughtful, and had this way of making me feel seen, truly seen, in a world where I often felt invisible. He was a single father, raising his teenage son Ethan after his divorce. When I first met David, he didn't hide the fact that his son was the center of his world. That honesty drew me in because I admired a man who prioritized his child. Still, the idea of becoming part of an already formed family scared me. I didn't know if I would be accepted, if I would belong, or if Ethan would ever see me as anything other than an intruder. The early days of our relationship were filled with dinners, movie nights, and quiet conversations where David opened up about his past. He told me about his struggles after the divorce, the nights when Ethan cried himself to sleep, and the guilt he carried for not being able to keep the marriage together. Listening to him made me realize how much strength it takes to be both a father and a source of stability for a child when your own heart is breaking. Meeting Ethan was another chapter entirely. He was polite when we first shook hands, his teenage awkwardness making him avoid eye contact. He gave me a polite smile but didn't say much, retreating to his room not long after introductions. I didn't take it personally. I knew it would take time. I remember telling David later that night, "He doesn't have to like me right away. I just hope he sees I'm not here to take his dad away." David had smiled softly and said, "That's exactly why I think he'll come around." Weeks turned into months, and gradually I noticed Ethan warming up. He would ask me about my job, sometimes join me in the kitchen when I cooked, and even laugh when I teased him about his obsession with video games. Little by little, the walls came down. But it wasn't until one unexpected moment that our relationship truly shifted, and as strange as it sounds, it happened in the most embarrassing way possible. It was a Saturday afternoon. David had gone out to run errands, and I was tidying up the kitchen. Ethan was upstairs in his room, headphones on, deeply immersed in his online game. I decided to take a quick shower before settling down with a book. The warm water was comforting, and I was humming absent-mindedly when I heard the creak of the bathroom door. Before I could react, the door opened fully, and there stood Ethan. His face went pale, his eyes wide with shock as he realized I was in the shower. "Oh my God, sorry," he stammered, slamming the door shut so quickly it rattled the frame. I stood frozen behind the shower curtain, my heart racing. For a second, I didn't know if I should laugh, cry, or yell. The entire situation was so startling and awkward. When I stepped out a few minutes later, wrapping myself in a robe, I could already hear the sound of Ethan's footsteps pacing back and forth downstairs. He must have been mortified. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that he was just a teenager who made an innocent mistake. Still, I knew I had to address it, because letting it linger would only make things worse. When I walked into the living room, Ethan was sitting stiffly on the couch, staring at the TV, though it was obvious he wasn't really watching. His cheeks were flushed, and he looked like he was waiting for a punishment. I sat beside him gently, careful not to make the moment more uncomfortable than it already was. "Ethan," I said softly. His head turned quickly, his eyes filled with guilt. "I'm so sorry, Jessica," he blurted out before I could continue. "I didn't know you were in there. I should have knocked. I feel like such an idiot." His words tumbled out in one long stream, his voice shaky. I couldn't help but smile a little, not at him, but at the fact that he cared so much about how I felt. "Hey, it's okay," I reassured him. "It was an accident. Just knock next time, all right?" My voice was light, trying to make him feel less embarrassed. He let out a nervous chuckle, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "Yeah, lesson learned." For the first time since I met him, I saw Ethan's guard completely drop. In that awkward, funny, and slightly horrifying moment, we connected in a way we hadn't before. It was as if we both realized that accidents happen, and it was okay to laugh about them later. And laugh we did. Later that evening, when David came home, Ethan kept glancing at me with a half-smile, the kind of look that said, "We both know what happened, but let's not tell Dad." I never shared the details with David because I didn't want to embarrass Ethan, and Ethan seemed grateful for that. It became our little unspoken secret, a reminder of the day when everything changed between us. After that incident, Ethan became more open with me. He would linger in the kitchen, asking me about recipes or telling me about school. Sometimes he even sought my advice, like when he wanted to ask a girl to the school dance and didn't know how. "You're a girl," he said sheepishly one night. "So maybe you know what girls like." I laughed, touched that he trusted me enough to ask. We talked about confidence, kindness, and how sometimes the simplest gestures mean the most. That conversation stayed with me because it was proof that Ethan no longer saw me as just his dad's wife. He saw me as someone who could guide him, someone he could trust. And trust is the foundation of every real family. There were still challenges, of course. Blending families is never simple. Ethan had moments when he missed his mom, when he struggled with school pressure, or when he argued with David. But now, instead of pulling away, he often came to me to talk. Sometimes we'd sit on the porch late at night, sharing quiet conversations about his dreams of becoming a graphic designer or his fears of disappointing his dad. One evening, he admitted something that nearly brought me to tears. "At first, I didn't want to like you," he said quietly. "I thought if I did, it meant I was forgetting Mom. But you never tried to replace her. You just cared. And now I'm glad you're here." I reached over and hugged him, something we hadn't done before. "Ethan, I'll never try to replace your mom. But I'll always be here for you." It was in that moment I realized that family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose to stay, who choose to care, who become family in the truest sense. David noticed the shift too. One night, as we were getting ready for bed, he said, "I don't know what you did, Jess, but Ethan has changed so much. He's happier. He actually talks to me now. I think it's because of you." I smiled, not needing to explain that sometimes the strangest moments, like being accidentally walked in on, can become the foundation for something deeper. Years later, when Ethan graduated high school, he gave a small speech at his celebration dinner. He thanked his dad, his friends, and then, to my surprise, he turned to me. "Jessica," he said, his voice steady, "thank you for not giving up on me when I was a stubborn teenager. You've been there for me in ways I didn't even know I needed. I'm luck."